This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on cabinet decisions. The participants are Prafulla Ketkar, political analyst, and Neelab Srivastav, journalist.
A meeting of the Union Cabinet was held today under the chairmanship of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Some important decisions were taken during this meeting of the Council of Ministers, and we are going to talk about some of those important ones. Now, the first decision was about the signing of guarantee, the Cabinet approving the signing of guarantee with the FIFA for hosting the Under-17s Women's World Cup in India, and this is going to take place, if I'm correct, between October 11th and 30th. And the second important decision that the Cabinet undertook, gave its sanction, was about approving a Constitution Amendment Bill that seeks to grant the ST status to a number of tribal groups that are residing in states like Chhattisgarh, Himachal Pradesh, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Uttar Pradesh. Going to the first decision, the more important decision first, Mr. Ketkar, the Cabinet approving the Constitution Amendment for the tribal group. How significant is this and what is the importance of this decision?
This decision by the Cabinet to make a special amendment to fulfill the demand of one community that is residing in Himachal and some parts of even Uttarakhand called Hattis. That the area is called Transgiri. And there was a long-standing demand to give them the tribal status. Many political parties at different times actually made the promise. Even this year, Lok Sabha MP from Mandi, when asked a question whether the Transgiri area of Himachal Pradesh has been granted the status of tribal affairs, then Tribal Affairs Minister Vishweshwar Tudu said the proposal could not be considered due to want of requisite criteria. Now, to grant a community tribal status, there is a specific need, and to fulfill that need, that community has to have some unique tradition. They have to be located in specific area. So there are various requirements as per the Article 244(2) of the Constitution. So accordingly, Himachal Pradesh submitted a proposal for notifying the Transgiri area of Sirmaur district, then Dodra Khwar subdivision of Shimla district, 15-20 areas of Shimla and Kulu district as scheduled areas. And now with this proposal sanctioning, now this particular community, which is known for selling homegrown crops, vegetables in small market towns called as huts, and from those huts, because their markets keep shifting, and that's how they were called as Hattis. Now, if you see the spread of this community, it is very peculiar. In Himachal Pradesh itself, Hattis live in around 154 panchayat areas. And members of community as per the 2011 census was around 2.5 lakh. Now it is estimated around 3 lakh. Himachal-Uttarakhand border, that basin is very important strategically also. And mainly this community, in fact, there are two sets of community within Hattis. One is called as the Transgiri, the other is called as the Jausar Bawar. And both of them reside in this particular area. I think this is a landmark step because this was a long pending demand, a deprived community. Anyway, in some ways they are attached to the forest area, the land, and having unique traditions. Their headgears are also very typical white color. So another important decision to ensure social justice, inclusivity, and giving due rights so that the schemes of the government, especially of the Tribal Welfare Ministry, reach out to the sections who are really marginalized.
Another, if I can just add to what you said, Mr. Ketkar, was the Union Tribal Affairs Minister, Mr. Arjun Munda, also briefed the press along with the Union Information and Broadcasting and the Sports Minister, Mr. Anurag Thakur. And what Mr. Munda said was also that the Cabinet has also approved the proposals to granting the scheduled tribe status to the Binjia community in Chhattisgarh and the Nariko, Ravan and Kurivi Karan communities in Tamil Nadu. I hope I am saying them the correct way. Also, the inclusion of the Betta Kuruba community, which is a synonym of the Kadu Karuba in Karnataka, that has also been approved. So as you said, that the decision will also bring about benefits to the communities by way of ensuring avenues for them in the education sector, for getting education, better education, and also in the government job sector.
These communities, it's a historic decision because it's a constitutional amendment. One, many scheduled tribes, though focus has been on Himachal Pradesh, this is going to impact actually 5 states, and there are different communities. So there was an exception made Why this amendment? Because these around 12 communities in 5 states which were granted this status, along with you rightly mentioned Binjia or Bhadoi district in Uttar Pradesh, there also Gonds will get the. So there were certain discrepancies state to state, and there were certain constitutional difficulties in granting this status. Now this particular decision has facilitated that process, and now it can be extended to other communities. So in that sense, it is a very landmark decision.
The second important decision, if we talk, is about the signing of the guarantees with the FIFA for hosting the Under-17 Women's World Cup in India. The cabinet did sanction that particular proposal. Now, we have been seeing that India is now excelling in sports. We have been doing good, but now if we talk about in the terms of number of medals and different disciplines that India is excelling in, its athletes and its sportspersons are excelling. It's a wide spectrum. So, Mr. Ketkar, Cricket World Cup has been in India. There has been a Hockey World Cup, if I'm correct. This particular decision, how does it not only the sport of football in the country, also this is a Women World Cup, so we can see a lot of representation of the women also probably getting enthusiastic and getting inspired by this particular tournament. But how do we see that this particular decision when it comes to increasing the kind of sporting acumen or probably the kind of sporting enthusiasm within the country? So how does this decision stand out?
This cabinet approval of signing of guarantees for hosting FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup in 2022 is again a very important decision. Earlier, remember that we hosted Under-17 FIFA World Cup for men in 2017. That definitely helped our young footballers to get the exposure to not just see the matches, but also kind of watching the football of future champions. That naturally encourages people to take to sports, and overall sporting culture is developed around this tournament. Now this signing of guarantees is another way that the cabinet under Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi has in a way ensured that this financial outlay of 10 crore assistance to All India Football Federation, we have seen all the hiccups, whether the World Cup would take place or not. All India Football Federation as a committee would be there or not. In fact, we have seen a lot of politics around it. And after all those hiccups, government not just ensured this event will go on, but government has given a guarantee. Now, what will this guarantee do? It will ensure field of play maintenance. It will ensure stadium power, energy and cabling. It will be maintenance of stadiums, training, site branding. So all these budgetary allocations will be ensured through this scheme, and this scheme of assistance to National Sports Federation, that will be actually implemented through this guarantee. Now, if we see what are the positive impacts, I believe that one is, of course, it will give impetus to increase representation of women in football as a sport. But besides that, it will also ensure women coming in leadership positions in decision-making bodies. Girls will be playing football and girls will be taking decisions about the allocation of resources and implementation in this entire. So it's a very gender inclusive approach. In the long run, it will certainly ensure football standards for women in India that will also improve, and it will certainly add commercial value to the game. Earlier, governments were reluctant. These were seen limited to providing infrastructure or creating new stadiums. But as far as the execution is concerned, the financial support to this execution, now All India Football Federation that will be holding this competition at Bhubaneswar, Navi Mumbai and Goa, we have already seen the way culture of various leagues that has evolved in India. Even in football, we are seeing that kind of experience. I believe that it will create a sustainable infrastructure for football as a sport. We should remember that besides all other games, football is truly an international game. It is followed worldwide. And that's why when we are emerging as important player on global geostrategic scenario, I think making this mark in the sports of football is also an important initiative of this government.
I would also want you to throw some more light on the kind of sporting activities and the initiatives that the country has been taking over the last few years, whether it is the TOPS, which is the Target Olympic Podium Scheme. The Prime Minister also makes it a point that he meets all the winners of different tournaments, whether it is Olympics or the Asian Games or Commonwealth Games. The facilitation that the kind of reception that the athletes now get, because there is, I believe, a lot of inculcation of the sporting temper in the country. So how do you see all these measures, not only this decision, but the culminating with all the decisions when it comes to different sports and India making it a point that we represent somewhere?
The all-over approach of this government seems to be developing a sports culture. It's not very game-specific. Yes, of course, we are promoting indigenous games, right from Kabaddi and Kho-Kho and Malkham. That is getting a lot of promotion. The SAI is specifically working now with Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports Affairs in tapping the right kind of talent, providing them atmosphere. The bureaucratic and administrative hassles are considerably reduced. And sports culture is not developed just by participation and winning medals. You have to create a ground for that in the society, actual infrastructure, the mindset, training. So everything has to come together. So Fit India movement, I believe, was one important step that was started, which overall fitness awareness. Then Khelo India scheme, where schools are encouraged to participate in larger games. So inter-school national level program that ensured mass participation and advancement of excellence in sports. So sports for all and sports for excellence. This has been the approach of this government. Then as you rightly mentioned, the top kind of scheme where we are picking up the right talent at the younger level after shortlisting them, and through trial and training, we are making it sure with a special focus that they will reach to the podium. Then there is a significant step, I believe, was taken in 2017 when, on the recommendation of Olympic Task Force, an empowered steering committee was formed. So now all actions about participation of Indian players in Olympic Games, somebody is accountable. Somebody is answerable for preparation of the games. So this fixing of accountability and keeping sports person at the center are key things. And therefore, if we see the way, for example, sports person coming from differently abled, the Divyang category, the way they are getting encouragement. People talk about Prime Minister talking to the teams or athletes who are performing well at the international level. I believe that irrespective of performance, just interacting with them, talking to them before the matches, even if they lose, giving them a pat and saying, well played. I think all these gestures are very important. And that's why we are seeing whether athletics, whether badminton, boxing, archery, wrestling, shooting, all kinds of sports are getting encouragement. The cricket-centric mania that we used to have as a nation, that we have suddenly overcome, and now we are truly in a position to develop truly sporting culture right from the grassroots level to the metropolitan cities, creating sports infrastructure both in physical terms and also in mental and psychological terms. I have to assess, especially post 2017, I clearly see this as the differentiating factor. Potential was always there. It had to be tapped and given the right kind of environment to blossom. I think these government decisions, including today's decision of ensuring guarantee for implementation of this level of championship in India, I think it will suddenly and certainly give a boost to this entire concept of evolving a sporting culture with a mass participation, and it's an incentive to play and to stay fit and get something for the country. All these things can be achieved with such a holistic approach.
That was a brief overview on the major decisions taken by the Union Cabinet today. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, Mr. Ketkar.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on Cabinet Decisions. The participants were Prafulla Ketkar, political analyst, and Neelab Srivastav, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.